Hey everyone, I'm Justin Fiedler, and this is DIRTRACKR Conversations. In recent weeks, we've talked Pennsylvania and California on this show, so I couldn't leave out our Ohio friends when it comes to big time sprint car regions. Jacob Hord from OhioDirt.com and the Ohio Dirt Track podcast joined me, with my original plan being to talk nothing but Ohio. But things sort of blew up yesterday, so we kicked it off talking about the Brent Marks CJB split, plus where this leaves the All-Stars. We then dove into what's been happening in Ohio at places like Attica, Wayne County, and Atomic, and what to expect going forward. We also talked about the interesting California to Ohio sprint car pipeline that has sprung up in recent years. It's a very solid 45-minute chat, so without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Jacob Hord. I feel like there's so much stuff that I wanted to talk to you about kind of in the Ohio world, and you write for OhioDirt.com and you're on the Ohio Dirt Track podcast, and you've written for Jeremy Elliott on SprintCarUnlimited.com. And I had like this kind of whole list of Ohio things, and then the world decided to blow up today. So first of all, I guess we'll start with Brent Marks leaving CJB. So as you know, the All-Stars kind of being, at least in the past, an Ohio-centric kind of series. Obviously, that's not necessarily the case now, but what do you kind of make of this situation now with Brent Marks?
I was blindsided by it. I mean, they've had some good runs, and from the things that I read on Jeremy's article, it sounds like some of Brent's sponsors weren't terribly happy with the way things went with them adding Paul McMahon. And I don't know the specifics, obviously. But I mean, I was blindsided. I mean, they've had some really good success and, solid runs, and they were going to be a really strong contender for the All-Star season. So seeing them, split up this early in the season, I mean, it's April and we're in silly season already. But it blew my mind. I don't know what, Brent's going to do. I think he said he's going to do some more local shows and just kind of hit more outlaw and all-star shows. But I mean, the guy can win. And, it seemed like after they got off to a sluggish start, last year, but they've finally picked it up and they seem to be rolling pretty good this year. So to get that news today it was mind blowing.
I feel like all of a sudden now you kind of knocked one of the legs out of like the All-Star championship fight, right? We expected it to be Eliason and maybe Tyler Courtney and Brent Marks, and obviously with what Justin Peck is doing, but like almost feel like this kind of takes the wind out of the sails a little bit here.
Yeah. I mean, the All-Stars they're deep. That's a huge thing they have going for them this year. I mean, they are absolutely loaded with talent. And it's going to show all year long. When they come to Ohio, it's going to be anywhere between, I think, 12 to 15 guys that can win between the All-Stars and our local guys. So it sucks that they're losing Brent Marks. He's a proven winner. He's a great sprint car driver, and it sucks that they're kind of losing, the CJB team as well off that tour, because it doesn't sound like they're going to hop back on the tour, at least on a full-time basis right now. But, it did kind of take the wind out of the sails, but I still think the All-Stars are going to have an amazing season.
What do you think about what we've seen so far from the All-Stars? As we kind of take a step back from just the Brent Marks news and what we've seen to this point. Justin Peck is one of those guys that we've known that's had some success, in kind of some of the lower levels and some different cars here and there. But and that boot car has obviously been solid with Paul McMahon the last couple of years. But like, I don't know that we expected him to just come out and start winning everything and to be leading the points after this first few races.
Oh, they've hit on something. They are just meshing really, really well. And we saw it last year. I think Justin stepped in for Paul at a race or two. I forget what the circumstance was, but Justin did really, really well that weekend. I think it was a weekend in Wisconsin or something. But I think everyone knew that Justin had the potential. He's won races in Ohio. He's run races in Indiana and probably Illinois. I think he got the All-Star win at Macon, Illinois, in his own 5X team. So we all knew he had the potential to, go out and do good things. And he's proving it this year, obviously. He has the wins in Pennsylvania. He has the All-Star win in Ohio. I mean, anywhere he goes, he's super good. But we also look at a guy like Tyler Courtney, and he's adjusting. Like, he's if he's able to build up that notebook more in Ohio and Pennsylvania, then he's going to be a contender. He has top fives, top tens at Ohio and Pennsylvania. He knows how to get around these places. It's just a matter of just getting more and more experience. And then obviously with Eliason, he's played second fiddle to Reitzel the last couple of years, but that car is also really good. And Corey knows how to drive that car, and they obviously have chemistry and they know what they want because they've been together for 3 or 4 years now. And then you just look at any of the other guys, Ian Madsen, like, holy smokes, you look at Ian Madsen and the things that he's done, it's just, and he's the fourth guy that we mentioned now.
Yeah.
It's the All-Stars are incredibly deep this year, and it's going to be I'm excited. The All-Stars have it going for them this year, and I think it's going to be a dogfight down to the very end. I honestly do not know who's going to win the championship.
I feel like that Port Royal race over the weekend with the All-Stars and watching Tyler Courtney just completely bang the boards at Port Royal.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that's like become the line there, like, you've seen Macri run it. You saw Larson obviously use it to massive success last year. But like that line, and I mean, how many times did Courtney like hit the wall, especially at a turn 2? Like watching him do that, and obviously with his non-wing experience, it's probably not outside the realm of his comfort zone to go do something like that. But watching him kind of figure it out with the wing car this weekend, and obviously without the flat tire, he might be the points leader at this point with the All-Stars. But to watch him do that and to watch him come along, what do you kind of make of him as he's making this transition? Like, do you think that, and like, I have to be honest, like when the season started, like, I don't know that I would have looked at Tyler Courtney, and I have said this on my daily show, like a lot of people call him somebody who could win the championship. And I don't know that I thought that, I think, he could be consistent and possibly win a race or two, but to really consider him a championship favorite. But like, after what I saw at Port Royal, like, I think I've changed my mind. Like, I think he could potentially win this thing for sure.
Yeah. When he announced that they were going to go All-Star racing, I told some people, it's like, don't count him out. I've seen him race in person. I've seen him race online, obviously. And the guy knows how to drive a car. It's just a matter of, putting together all these solid nights. He's followed USAC. He's won championships with USAC, so he knows how to run for points. It's just a matter of getting everything dialed into his liking with the wing car. I mean, that's a heck of a transition. But I told people, don't sleep on Tyler, because he knows how to win races and he knows how to adapt and adjust to multiple different cars. He's raced just about everything on dirt, and it's, like I said, you just can't count him out.
When we kind of look at the All-Stars, with the Ohio kind of flavor involved in your kind of area of expertise, what do we think about a guy like Cap Henry? Can he really compete for this kind of thing? Like, his All-Star wins that we've seen have come in Ohio, and he's obviously had a ton of success at Ohio racetracks. But can he adapt quickly enough as they go to Pennsylvania, as they go to Illinois and Indiana and some of these other places? Can he do that and really be a contender at some of these other parts of the country?
I think he can. It's, a lot of people forget that Cap has ran the All-Stars, 4, 5, 6 seasons. And I think he finished 4th in those standings every year. So he has experience at these tracks. You look back at this past weekend, it wasn't his first time at the Grove. It wasn't his first time at Port, and it wasn't his first time at Bedford. He has top 10s at all 3 of those tracks, and I think a top 5 at 1 or 2 of them as well. So he has some of that experience, going around to these different tracks on the All-Star Tour. And granted, it was back in the late 2000s, early, 2010 era. So obviously the All-Stars were a little different back then. They didn't have, the deep feel that they have now. But he's also with an amazing team in Lane Racing. And, Lane Racing started, I think, 2017. And, they got Cap, and they just immediately started winning races. And once they started getting those All-Star wins, I mean, obviously it was in Ohio. but 2 of those were during Speed Week last year. And I mean, those, I think one of the hardest things to do in sprint car racing is win, you know, Ohio Sprint Speed Week at Attica, because you could have upwards of 50 cars there from anywhere, really. You know, you have the best in Indiana, Illinois, the All-Stars, the best in Ohio, everyone's there. And for him to top the field not once but twice in Speed Week last year, and then back it up with another All-Star win, I think, I forget when, I think it might have been another Wayne County, or no, it was Fremont. It was Fremont,
Yeah.
during the Jim and Joanne Ford Classic.
Yeah, late in the year.
Back in October. Yeah. So he has 4 All-Star wins on 3 tracks. And Cap knows how to win on different tracks. I think he won on 4 different tracks last year, being Attica, Fremont, Sharon, and Wayne County. So Cap knows how to win on these different tracks, and he's seen a decent amount of these tracks on the All-Star Tour. So it's just going to be a matter of building that notebook with Lane Racing, because Lanes have never gone on the road before. They're based out of Michigan, and you know, like I said, they've never gone on the road before. So this is all new to them. So they're just going to have to learn how to travel together and what to do with all these tracks that they're seeing, and, you know, translate what they're seeing into adjustments on the car. And just, shoot, I lost my train of thought there.
No, but I mean, I think you're on the right track there, but I feel like, you know, he's obviously a guy that we know that can win in Ohio. And I wonder, you know, with as much experience as you have, you know, we've already talked about Eliason and Peck and Ian Madsen. It's like, can he elevate his game and elevate that team to their level, I guess?
Yeah. And I know they want to win at least one All-Star show outside of Ohio, just to prove that, you know, they can win outside of Ohio. You know, they can go to these different tracks and go win. So I think it's an attainable goal for them. You know, they're definitely motivated to do so. And I know they want it really, really badly. And they have the people behind them to do it. They have a ton of support. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do snag a victory outside of Ohio this year.
Looking at Ohio, obviously that was kind of the main reason I wanted to have you on the show, was to kind of talk about Ohio sprint car things. And I was looking at the you know, your kind of whatever takeaways that you did from this last weekend, your bullet points, and that kind of note about there not being any repeat winners yet. We've seen obviously different winners every week so far. Why is that the case? Is it just because things are so wide open right now with Ohio sprint car racing?
I kind of think so. You know, we go back to Cap Henry last year, and he won, I forget how many races he won. I think it was like 11 or 12 races, you know. So you take away a guy like Cap Henry, who's not running in Ohio every week now. In the first couple of weeks that they ran, you know, they're shaking things down. So they're not, you know, they're not running in Ohio all that often anymore. And I think a lot of these guys have honestly just stepped up their game. You know, you look at the recent kind of California invasion, you know, Buddy Kofoid a couple years ago and Cole Macedo now, you know, those guys forced our Ohio locals to step up their game. And they definitely did. And it shows, because we've had 10 races and 10 different winners. Now, some of those are kind of to be expected. You know, we have a Cole Duncan win at Atomic, and we have a Dean Jacobs win at Wayne County. But what we're also seeing is we're seeing guys like Trey Jacobs, you know, Dean's son. We're seeing guys like Henry Malquit, Tyler Street. And I mean, the list can go on and on of all these different guys that can win. In addition to the seasoned veterans like your Byron Reeds, your Craig Mintz, Travis Philo. I mean, again, the list goes on, because there are just so many guys. You know, when it's their night, it's their night. You know, we have DJ Fuss is another one. Stuart Brubaker can go out and win on any night. And then you get your kind of invaders. I don't know if we should call them invaders or not. You know, you have your Gary Taylor and the local 97 team, the Joe and Diane Sealing team. You know, he's not from the area, but, you know, he races in Ohio pretty much every weekend, and he snagged a win at Waynesfield. It's just, everyone kind of comes to Ohio, and you get some of the best in sprint car racing in Ohio every week, and it shows. If it's someone's night, it's their night. Um, so I think that's kind of why we're seeing this parity, and I wouldn't be surprised if it continues even more.
Do you think when you kind of, obviously with the internet and all of these things now, we can kind of get a better idea of like what's happening in Pennsylvania, what's happening in Ohio, what's happening in California. And it seems like when we talk about the sprint car areas of the country, those are the three we talk about.
Mhm.
But do you think even with that, do you think Ohio gets enough respect nationally for the drivers and the teams and the tracks that it has, up against places like California and Pennsylvania?
Mhm. I'm not sure. I think Ohio might be overlooked a little bit. Everyone makes fun of the dusty tracks or whatever, but I don't mind the dust as long as it's not terrible, I guess. um, I think those slicker tracks in Ohio are a great equalizer. You don't have to just throttle around the top and just stay on the gas. You have to work it. You have to use both the gas and the brake, and you have to search around for all these different lines to figure out which one's the fastest. And so I think the tracks get a bad rap just because we don't use the water truck as much as California does, but we also don't tear up as much equipment as some of those tracks in California, just because we're not going at that high rate of speed. Driver wise, I mean, I would put Cap Henry, Cole Duncan, and Craig Mintz really up against anyone, like locally against, say Lance Deweese, Danny Dietrich, and I can't think of another one, and Tim Schaefer in Pennsylvania, or like a, Dominic Scelzi, Justin Sanders, and Shane Golobic in California. Like those three in Ohio, I would put up against any of those three. I would love to see what they could do in, similar equipment in California and Pennsylvania against those guys, because I think people would be surprised. Cole Duncan has Pennsylvania Speedway win. He went to Path Valley and stole Pennsylvania Speedway win. And then we have a guy like Craig Mintz who can come in and run, top 5 with the All-Stars after his like first race of the year. And then obviously we know what Cap can do in Ohio, and again, he has the experience in Pennsylvania as well. So I think Ohio is just really, really deep. And when it comes to talent, they may not have like the absolute top guys like Lance Deweese and Danny Dietrich, but I think our depth is probably the best in the country.
What do you make of, and something that I've kind of found really interesting about Ohio, at least in recent years, is it almost seems like we like drivers are, especially young drivers, are almost using Ohio as like a springboard. Like, we've seen Buddy Kofoid now come through Ohio, and
Mm-hmm.
we're watching Cole Macedo now come through Ohio, and Christopher Bell, even back in the day, like
Mm-hmm.
pairing up with Ferkel and coming through Ohio, and Carson Macedo coming through the All
Mm-hmm.
Stars in Ohio. Like, is that just, is that because there are rides available for those guys? Is that because, it is a good place to go learn kind of some of these more style of racetracks that they're going to run in the Midwest and places like that? What do you kind of make of that move of some of these guys kind of through Ohio?
I think it's a little bit of both. Um, in Ohio, we have different tracks than, California. Like I said earlier, it slicks off in Ohio, and it's not these, hammer down rough tracks. You get ice skating rinks in Ohio sometimes. So you come to Ohio to learn, and you learn how to use that brake pedal and just kind of how to finesse the car and work through traffic on, like I said, an ice skating rink. And again, there seem to be rides in Ohio as well. You know, Christopher Bell, he started out with Rick Ferkel in Ohio, I believe. And I think that was Wayne County. He started out with Rick Ferkel. And obviously we see where Christopher Bell is now. We have Buddy Kofoid, who kind of caught eyes when he was racing out in California. And, through connections with the Linders and the Macedos, he got to come out and run, and obviously did very well. And, I think the first one was kind of Carson Macedo. He came out and ran a second car for Craig and Les Mintz. And on his first time at Fremont, he went out and won. That definitely caught a lot of people's eyes, and they're like, hey, like these California kids are pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Can kind of open up these car owners' eyes, and it's been incredible to watch these guys the last couple of years. Carson was coming through Ohio in that 09X, when I first started getting into sprint car racing there around 2016 or so. And then he moved on to the Gertie 3G. And then obviously he's an outlaw now. But kind of getting to watch Buddy progress the last couple of years and just seeing the natural talent that he has and the opportunity that he had to go drive for Ed Neumeister and the Linders. I mean, that was a huge break for him. And it wouldn't have been possible without, Ed basically saying, all right, Mike and Steve Linder, this is kind of your show to run, you can go do what you want. And they took a chance on Buddy, and it obviously worked out well. So we kind of we joke around, we call it the California orphanage in Fremont, at the Linder's house, because they've had 3-4 California guys kind of come through now with, the Macedos, Buddy, and DJ Noto has spent some time out here as well. So there are rides available, I think. And, you look at, the 11N has been one of the big ones. Harley White's in the 11N now. She's going to make her debut out here, I think, this week, which is pretty cool to see, because it just continues that trend of drivers getting an opportunity to come out and tone in their skills and add new skills to their driving repertoire.
Of that group, obviously right now we're watching kind of Cole Macedo go through this, and this kind of Ray Brooks team now that the Linders are involved in and all of that. But what do you make of Cole? Do you think he's as talented as Carson? Do we think he could be kind of in that line to then maybe be a full-time all-star, be a full-time outlaw here in the next couple of years?
If Cole keeps improving, then he's going to be a contender every single night. Last year, they just never were able to get their feet underneath them in that Jay Kaiser card. They just, they would take one step forward and they'd be 2 steps back, basically. We saw flashes of brilliance with them. But this year, obviously, the Linders are wrenching on the car, and he's living with the Linders. So there's just that added connection there. And it obviously paid off Friday night with the win. And then Saturday night, they got upside down. I think they got involved in someone else's mess. But if Cole said something to me Friday night after his win, and I think it was a huge step in the right direction for him, because it shows that he's maturing as a driver. He said something along the lines of he's realizing that he can't go 110% all the time. If you go 110% all the time, you're going to end up wrecked a lot. He said he's learning, how to work up to that 100% and kind of save the car for when that right moment is to go 100%. And he did that Friday night. And that 100% moment is when, he was able to get by Brian Smith at the halfway point and then just kind of drive away to the feature win. So Cole is definitely maturing as a driver. And I think he has what it takes to be a solid contender in Ohio, contender for the win most nights wherever he shows up, especially in that Ray Brooks racing car, because it's a nice operation. I could see Cole going on the All-Stars and making some noise there as well. But as long as he, keeps maturing and keeps making this progression, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cole keep making more and more steps up the ladder.
As we look around Ohio at the tracks and obviously the couple of different series that travel, who are you thinking are going to be champions kind of across the board here at the major kind of Ohio tracks and series?
This is one question I was worried about because I haven't given much thought to it. I think Attica is really wide open. We keep mentioning Cap Henry, he's not running Attica weekly. So that kind of blew it wide open. Chad Kemenal was second at Attica points last year, and he's not running that much anymore. He's focusing on his son's career. I think Travis Philo was third in Attica points last year, and he missed the first week he missed the first week, and then a couple weeks ago his motor was out of the car by feature time. So, that's your top three in points right there. But if I had to make a pick for Attica, and it's based solely off of if he runs Attica weekly, I think Trey Jacobs could do it. He keeps knocking on that door. It seems like every feature he's going forward, and he's led laps at Attica. He's led laps at Attica with the All-Stars, which is tough to do as well. So he has that experience. He just has to, I think once he wins one race there, a lot more will come. But he has all the consistency in order to, I think, win a championship at Attica. Wayne County is another one. It's going to be one of those Dean Jacobs until proven otherwise. Dean keeps winning races. This is supposed to be his last year racing. We'll see if that comes true or not. But Dean and Jerry McClure, they're a match made in heaven. That car just gets around Wayne County so well, and it's going to be Dean Jacobs until someone proves me otherwise at Wayne County. If we go to like Fremont,
can we even say anything about Fremont, because it's like not even open yet? We don't even know what that
right
looks like yet.
Fremont opens up this weekend, Saturday night. I think it's going to be close between Nate Dussel and DJ Foose, and I guess DJ is a name I should throw in at Attica as well. He has a win here this year, and he's won a championship at Attica before, so he knows how to get it done. But Nate and DJ battled it out to like the last lap of Fremont last year for the championship, and I think it was decided by one or 2 points, with Nate squeaking it out. So I think it'll be between Nate and DJ this year. Don't sleep on Brian Smith, though. We obviously saw what he can do Attica Friday night when he wasn't even planning to race. And I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend of mine. I think he has some really good equipment this year, and he obviously he knows how to get around Fremont when it gets, like an ice rink. So don't sleep on Brian Smith for Fremont. I'm trying to think.
I mean, is it Cole Duncan at Atomic? I mean, is that
Atomic, Cole Duncan.
Yeah.
Again, it's like Wayne County, Cole Duncan until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
I think there was only like 1 or 2 races at Atomic last year that he like didn't win or finish off the podium at Atomic. So that place is magical for him, and you could probably stick him in a late model at Atomic and he'd probably win too, just because he's just that good at Atomic. So we have the AFCS series as well. I don't know off the top of my head who all is running between that. I think Craig Mintz is running that series though, and he'll be one to watch for the AFCS, as well as, Nate Dussel, DJ Foose, Cole Macedo is running it as well. So those will be some names to watch there. I don't know if we can technically count the Fast Series as an Ohio series. They race outside of Ohio a lot, and I'm not sure who all is chasing the Fast Series this year. But they've had a couple races, and I think that one's kind of wide open, I think, just because you get a hodgepodge of anyone, and anyone will show up to race those races. So that one, Fast Series, will definitely be tough to call.
I want to get you super spun up, because I know you've been pretty vocal about your opinions. But the World of Outlaws are at Bristol this weekend. Mm-hmm. It's been pretty clear from you that you are not a fan of this this racetrack being on the schedule. Walk me through your Bristol hot take, the Jacob Hord Bristol hot take about why you think we shouldn't be there.
Because it's not safe. We can do as much as we want to make these sprint cars safe. We can limit who can get into these races and race in these races for added safety. But I've seen the crashes. I've seen, parts break. And if your parts on a sprint car are breaking at God knows what speed, it's not going to end well, I don't think. Um, I think we could have done without Bristol for the sprint cars just because it's, I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. I hope my fears are wrong. Um, and I'll take all the crap in the world for it if I am wrong. But and I get it. You know, racing isn't safe. It's never going to be 100% safe. But we can do things to mitigate some of the dangers. And I think something that we could have done is not race at Bristol. You know, it's going to be incredible speeds. And, you know, if you have a slider gone wrong, you know, you have someone going up into the fence at a high rate of speed, you know, there's just too many things that could go wrong, I think, at Bristol um, for the sprint cars.
What do you like? I mean, did you feel that way before? Did you kind of form this opinion as we've seen some of the other racing happen? Like, obviously, we've seen some fairly large crashes with the late models and things like
Mhm.
that have raced up to this point. Like, did you feel like that before? And you know, have you gone back and watched some of the old races on YouTube? Where did you kind of come through this? Like, I guess I'm just wondering what the thought process is of why you think what you think here.
Um, I was kind of closeted at first when, you know, they said they're coming to Bristol. I'm like, all right, you know, it's cool. It's a cool deal that they get to go to Bristol and race, you know, kind of relive that nostalgia. But again, the safety thing kind of was always in my mind. And, you know, I saw a couple other people, you know, Jeremy Elliott was one. You know, he came out with one of his daily videos and it was like, you know, for the world of outlaws wanted to be as safe as possible. You know, if we have to limit drivers coming in for safety reason, then we shouldn't be racing there at all. And, you know, that my thoughts were kind of jumbled up, but that put it into words basically. You know, if we want to be safe, then why are we racing at a track that we have to limit who can race there, you know, for safety reasons. Um, and I've seen a couple of drivers, you know, I think Danny Dietrich was one on Twitter, you know, he's like, you know, what if a part breaks? You know, our cars really weren't built for this kind of speed. And, you know, we haven't seen what these cars can do at this kind of speed. You know, I don't know what kind of speeds they got to in 2000 and 2001, but I feel like sprint cars have probably gotten a little faster since then, maybe. And we don't know what these, you know, cars are going to do at this kind of speed. And, you know, if something breaks, something goes wrong, you know, I'd hate to be that part manufacturer. And then once I saw some of those crashes, you know, the modifieds, late models, you know, just how big some of those were, it's like you do this in a sprint car and, you know, it's going to be a lot worse. You know, I think they've gotten rid of, I think they had like some of these weird tires kind of sticking out
Yeah, I
on the
think they're
bottom
getting
of
rid
the
of those.
curves. So, you know, that's a great thing because, you know, we saw what they did to the modifieds and late models. Um, but there hasn't been enough good, like, things that or I don't know. They're just, they haven't convinced me that it's, you know, um, as safe as it can be. I
Do
guess
you think that
that's
this
my
is like
big
a
thing.
bigger indictment on this being too fast of a racetrack, or do you think we aren't doing enough in terms of safety of the cars and the safety equipment and all those types of things? Like, if those
Um,
things were better, would your opinion be different, or do you think that this is just a place that the World of Outlaws should, and sprint cars in general, just shouldn't be racing at? Period. Ever. Like, you know,
I
end of
think
conversation.
I think our sprint cars are, you know, pretty darn safe. You know, the Outlaws, the All Stars, the local tracks, you know, they've taken steps to make this sport as safe as possible. And I mean, that should be applauded. But you go to Bristol and I don't know what our top speeds are going to be. I don't really want to think about it, but
Are you
we
gonna
really
watch?
don't. Probably not. I'll probably be at Attica Friday night and then Fremont Saturday. Um, maybe I'll watch practices, what, Thursday night?
Thursday.
So maybe I'll watch practice. I don't know. Um, but it's just, you, I just don't think Bristol is a place that we should race. And, people are like, oh, you race at half miles, Williams Grove, Port Royal, Eldora all the time. And, things, they crash there. I'm like, they do, but, we're going to be running probably upwards of 150 miles an hour, probably even more, maybe. I don't think we get to those speeds at Williams Grove, Port Royal, or Eldora. So I'm nervous about what might happen if a car, goes into the wall at a high rate of speed, because we haven't seen what they do. So I just, it's really never sat well with me. And I was discussing it with one of my friends a while ago, and we were both in agreement that we're pretty happy that no one that we personally know was invited, just because it would just be too nerve-wracking. We don't want something bad to happen.
I would be hard pressed to have you on the show to talk about Ohio stuff if I didn't ask you about Eldora, and all of the craziness we're going to see there this year with the two worlds and the two dreams and the two Kings Royals. What do you kind of think of that, and what all of the money that we're going to see? And I mean, are you going to get a chance to make it to Eldora? Like, what do you kind of think of all of that?
Mm-hmm. If there's a place that can do it, it's Eldora. I mean, they know how to put on a great show, and they have the capability to do two of the biggest two of every of the biggest races in Ohio, and two of every of some of the biggest races in dirt track racing in general. It's going to be crazy to see how everything folds out. And it's going to be, I still think it's going to be dependent on, how many people can attend these races though, as well. We still haven't gotten, the 100% green light from all of the COVID. So it's going to be interesting to see. But if everything goes off without a hitch, I am absolutely excited. I missed going to Eldora last year. I wasn't able to go to like the Governor's Reign or anything like that. But Eldora is just such an experience, and there's a racetrack there too, and the racetrack puts on some pretty good racing. So it's, like I said, if there's any place that can do this, it's Eldora. They call it the world's greatest dirt track for a reason. So if they're able to pull all this off, it'll go down. It should probably go down in like motorsports history as to some of the most incredible things that has ever been done in racing. It's something that would make Earl and Bernie Spaltz, just smile from ear to ear what they're doing right now. They're putting on the biggest races, and they're like, well, we're going to make up for last year's stuff too. So it's Eldora being Eldora, and I'm here for it.
Give me the story of Ohio Dirt. Obviously, the first time I kind of started to know who you were and Clint was, your show kind of popping up, and obviously me and Ross, back when we were on Open Red, we're on Yell's show, but like, tell me kind of the Ohio Dirt story, how you and Clint kind of hooked up, and the idea for the show, and kind of where you guys are going with this.
Mm-hmm. So it was 2019, I think. I guess technically late 2018 is when Clint and I met. We just followed each other on Twitter. And I think a few times he mistook me for Jacob Nord, who used to help Cody Summer with Mansfield Motorsports Park. Jacob Hord, Jacob Nord, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
I'll give him credit for that. And, we just kind of kept talking here and there. And I guess he knew that, I had some racing knowledge, and I was, passionate about racing. And when it came time for the second go around at the Sprint Car World Championship at Mansfield, I think that was 2019. When it came time for that, he had been talking to Jacob Nord, and it just kind of morphed from there. Jacob Nord wanted some extra promotional stuff done for that race, And he had mentioned to Clint, like, hey, you should start a podcast, talk about the race. And at the same time, Clint messaged me. He's like, hey, like I have this opportunity to start a dirt racing podcast, focused on Ohio, and we'll start off talking about the Sprint Car World Championship. So it just kind of morphed from there, and coincidentally, that race is where I met Jeremy Elliott, and I kind of got hooked up with him for a little bit there. Started writing for him 2019 and 2020. So around all that time is when everything kind of started, getting crazy. I knew I wanted to do more in racing other than be a fan. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of fiddled around in writing a little bit. And, so it was just writing, and we started the podcast, and it just kind of morphed from here. And then this off season, Clint wanted to make Ohio Dirt, a little bigger. We had a website last year, and we did the podcast. Obviously, we had a little bit of merch, but Clint had all these just big ideas for what Ohio Dirt could be. So we just kind of we committed to it. We bet on ourselves, and so I started writing, putting stuff on Ohio Dirt. We have driver merchandise. If you don't want to, or if you're not able to get a driver shirt like at the track, you can come to our website, and get that, and all the money goes right to the driver. Clint's doing his Turn 2 blog, his opinion piece or column commentary, whatever you want to call it. But we're hoping to kind of keep building up Ohio Dirt, and just be the place where people can go, to get Ohio racing news, to get our podcast, to get driver merchandise, to get our own merchandise, and just kind of be that place to go for Ohio dirt track racing. I think is our ultimate goal, and just kind of spread the news of Ohio dirt track racing, because it's some of the best some of the best in the country.
Well, I appreciate the time tonight. I've been here for almost an hour, and I'm sure you have other things to do, but give me the plugs for everything. Where can we find you? Where can we find Ohio Dirt? What have been the recent podcast episodes we should check out? Give me the whole rundown.
All right. So for the Ohio Dirt stuff, on Twitter, it is at Ohio Dirt, and then it is the Ohio Dirt Track Podcast on Facebook. And then you can search us on really anywhere you can get podcasts, or on YouTube, and you can listen to everything there. Let's see. Some of the recent podcast episodes, we had Henry Malquit, Wayne County regular, on our last episode. Previously, we had Harley White talking about, her transition to coming to the 11N and coming to Ohio to race. Personally, I'm on Twitter at Hord Race Watcher. Bad jokes and bad takes pretty much is what I'm there for. And then Clint, I think, is at Clint J Knight on Twitter. I can't remember. I should know this stuff. Or maybe it's CJ Knight 3. I can't remember. I should know this stuff. Other than that, I think that's about everything. And then, the website is ohiodirt.com. And that's where you can read my writing. That's where you can get Clint's blog posts, merchandise, news, driver merchandise, really anything you could want.
Love it. Well, Jacob, I appreciate the time tonight, and good luck with everything going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.